Welcome to the Corporate Treasury 101 podcast. Today we continue our interview with Koen De Smet. Koen is a director in a major consulting firm and specialized in treasury transformation projects. TMS, Treasury Management System, is often considered as the core system in treasury and ensures all the main functions a treasury department may need. But what about the other systems, more specialized for specific needs, for instance? Today, we can say that there are as many systems out there as treasury functions. In this episode, we cover all those. Expect to learn what a payment hub is, what a trading platform can be used for, or why a company could use a cash flow forecasting tool, especially nowadays, and much more. Koen also takes the time to explain how all those systems are interconnected and need to be properly set up in order to function properly. Last but not least, Koen explains what a best-in-class treasury department should look like according to him, and his take is quite interesting since systems are actually only enablers. People are in the center of it, but we'll let you discover this in the episode. Before getting into it, some flash informations. We published an ebook. If you were dreaming of finding a book explaining the ABCs of corporate treasury, well, do not search anymore. We got you covered. Head to the link in the description to download it, and the best part, it is completely free. Last but not least, if you like the podcast, or if you want to support us, or if you do not want to miss any of the episodes in the future, or all of the above, subscribe to the podcast. Oh, and you can of course give us a good rating in the meantime. That makes Wissam and I very, very happy. Of course, it also helps the podcast to be found more easily by other treasury aficionados, so it will mean more people in the community. With all that being said, please welcome Koen De Smet.
What are the different types of systems we can find in the treasury landscape typically? So I'm not talking about the ERP anymore, but really treasury functions.
The functions of a treasury management system or the systems themselves?
So the different systems. I would like to make a little dive in the treasury management system a little bit down for the episode, but still remaining high level. Because we can imagine there are as many systems as functions in treasury now.
Yeah.
You have the TMS, obviously, we covered this one. What are the other systems we can find?
Sure. So we spoke about the treasury management system, which I'm always calling the kind of core treasury system or solution. So that is kind of basically the backbone, almost as you will, or the radar center behind your treasury team. Then you have some, let's say, applications that typically interact with your treasury management system, but also with other tools in the organization, which we could call specialist applications. A big one within that is a payment factory solution, also sometimes called the bank connectivity hub, which is basically a bank agnostic or multi-bank platform that has as a main function to process payments and to retrieve account information, so bank statements, being it end of day, intraday, and kind of distributing that to the relevant system. So that is, I think, two core applications within what we see in many treasury functions that have those tools.
Okay.
Sometimes they're part of one solution. Sometimes they're two separate solutions.
That was going to be my question, because you mentioned it when describing the functions of the TMS. You especially talked about this retrieving the information from the bank account. But now, so the payment hub does that in a more efficient manner, more streamlined.
Yeah. Treasury management systems have basic functionality, basically to always, visualize that information, right, in a cash position worksheet or what have you. Yeah. And they somehow also have the necessary bank connectivity to, even do payments and retrieve bank statement information. But and some have really advanced functions within that. But we see also a lot of specialist players there in that domain that offer just a distinct solution to do that, and that solution then also, and that's an important nuance, operates and processes company-wide payments, such as, again, our AP, payroll, so large volumes of transactions that are all channeled through a single solution to the banks.
Okay. So it's not only the treasury transactions anymore, but operating the whole. So this payment hub will be linked also to the ERP you mentioned earlier that is using, which is aggregating this API.
ERP or ERPs or other, let's say, source solutions that produce payments. Think about, typical payroll solutions such as there's many out there. But also, for example, TNL,
TNL. What's that?
expense tools, for example, would also produce payments to reimburse the employees and all those things. So there's many, kind of interfacing tools. With a payment factory or bank connectivity hub, and then you have all sorts of other specialist treasury tools that are sometimes called satellite applications, surrounding applications that are basically each have their own purpose. And if you want, I can name a few.
Domain, maybe not name of systems, but indeed domain. So in my mind, because we had an interview with the amazing Ellen Lowers on this podcast, who talked about trade finance, and I imagine there will be trade finance specialized tools, for instance. What else will be out there?
Yeah, so indeed, trade finance, again, multi-bank platforms there, but also trade execution platforms. So if you, again, thinking about the beginning of our conversations, you have FX, foreign exchange hedges that you're doing. You basically need to do them in the market, right? And typically those are done over the counter. That means directly with a bank.
Yes.
And most corporations, again, 30 years ago, that would have been done over the phone. Now that is done in a platform where you basically ask a price for your trade to multiple banks, and that is done in a trade execution platform.
Awesome. So this trade execution platform will be linked to a numerous amount of banks. You will ask for a quote, and all the banks bid for this specific quote. Is the process fully automated then on the bank side as well, or is it only for the corporate?
It is. So what you would see that indeed almost all big banks are signed up to those platforms, and they also have their, let's say, machines linked to those platforms, so that liquid trades, plain vanilla trades, just basically get priced automatically. Whereas very distinct trades, for example, in exotic currencies or large amounts, would then be rule-based, be routed to a trader that will have to price it at the bank itself.
So the advantage of this tool will be to, again, as for the TMS, a little bit eliminate the manual, potentially highly risked workload, because human can make errors where machines tend to do a little bit less, not zero, but less. So here again, the objective is to get off this over-the-counter aspect and more just automate the deal.
The trades will still be done over the counter. That's just the nature of the way they are executed, but it's more indeed the fact that you do it all in a platform. So imagine you're doing 10 FX trades per day. Some corporations 100. If you do that over the phone with your trader at the bank, the risk of making an issue or an error or misunderstanding each other in terms of the price is very high, right? So
indeed, never understood those pairs, currencies, rates, and numbers. But makes sense. Okay.
There's a few other platforms, confirmation platforms to confirm those same trades, market data providers, and so forth and so forth. So there's a whole suite of applications, and that's what I wanted to kind of mention on this one as well, is that in the past, treasury management systems would try to have a very broad scope and try to almost get everything in one solution. Now we are seeing a trend towards trying to exploit the strengths of solutions. So basically, focus on what you're good at and rather work on a seamless interface with a specialist solution that is also focusing on what they're good at.
Interesting. So that will also mean more, as you call them, satellite systems, applications. So you multiply the cost as well, I imagine, because, as good as people in treasury may be, they do not do things for free, right? So if you install all those satellite applications, the cost is higher, but it's still more interesting than having human people do it or having a manual process.
there is a cost indeed associated to that, and it's again all about cost benefits, where you know what is your need. There's a number of, let's say, basic essentials. So everybody will want to have market data in the system, right? Or you cannot account for your trades, and typically those are not also at the highest cost, I would say. But every corporation needs to make the benefits case or business case themselves, of course, for going for a solution or not.
Okay, and so again, going back to what you said earlier, it will depend on the complexity. If you do one trade per week, foreign exchange, I mean, so that would justify one of this platform you just talked about. It's maybe not worth to implement a digital platform, but if you do 100 per day, then it becomes relevant. Whereas, I don't know, your bank account management tool might be less relevant because you don't have that many whatsoever.
Yeah.
Throughout the systems, I feel that there is a lot of interactivity, interdependency between the different systems. The FX trading platforms need to capture correctly the exposure, right? That is consolidated into the TMS. The AP and AR that are in the ERP are linked to the TMS and so on. How is this whole landscape integrated between each other? Is it a direct connection? How does it work?
Yeah, so let's say in the middle, you have your treasury management system, right? That is then getting interfaces, again, depends on the need, to those other solutions.
Okay.
And those are typically not standalone solutions. And again, it depends on the need, right? You could have a solution, let's say, to capture a money market fund transaction, but you only do a handful per month. Then you probably don't need an interface. You could do it manually. But if you have that done daily and high frequency, you probably would require an interface to do it efficiently, or somebody essentially needs to key over data from system to system every day. So again, that depends on the need. But what we see is that those solutions are normally interfaced with each other using various technologies. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. We covered most of the functionalities of the TMS, I feel. What we like to ask with Sam on this podcast is what makes a successful blah, blah, blah. I feel what makes a successful TMS isn't really relevant, but can you walk us through what would a best-in-class treasury department look like, or in terms of TMS and payment hub, because those are the two main you mentioned? What does it look like? Like a TMS that will execute all the treasury functions, completely linked to the other interfaces and applications you may have, the payment hub taking care of all the payments, completely running wild here and making assumptions. But what does it look like in a best-in-class treasury department?
So to me, best in class, there is no single rule for that to say this is best in class. First of all, I think what it should do is as I mentioned, the treasury team is typically a lean team, right? So that means and highly qualified people. Typically, what I think would be then a pity is that the vast majority of your team or people are spending 90% of their time to kind of process 90% of the transactions and only have 10% of their time available, or no percent of their time available to analyze data, to optimize strategies, to provide value insights for the organization. So I think it is, in fact, people should only spend 10% of their time on 90% of the transactions, and 90% of their time on 10% plus the value add function that a treasury should have.
Yeah.
That I think is the right balance to find. And of course, there is complexities that are always divert a bit from this kind of a rule, not scientifically I would say underpinned, but it is more like an evaluation that a company should make, right? Is my team of 10 people purely processing transactions because my processes are not automated, requires a lot of manual intervention? Then you would probably are not best in class for your organization. Then something can be done to optimize this, and people could be freed up to do other things that are, let's say, more value add.
Awesome. That's fascinating. I can't stop myself from thinking about the conversation we had with Mike. And it's interesting that talking about TMS, it comes back to people. What a best in class, or however we may call it, treasury department look like, is when people actually focus on bringing value because the systems do the repetitive task for them. Super interesting. Anything else you would like to mention about TMS? I have a little last section I would like to touch upon, but anything else we forgot to touch upon and that may be relevant for the treasury management system, payment hub? I think we didn't mention cash flow forecasting. I imagine there will be some tools for that as well. It's one of the main functions.
Yeah, that will be an interesting one to indeed finalize this section. There's cash flow forecasting, which is, if you look at what is on top of mind of treasurers for the past 5-10 years, you would always see cash flow forecasting in the top 3.
Okay.
Of course, that has spikes when crises are around the corner or wherever we are in a crisis. For example, 2008, COVID-19, and now recently, luring recession, let's say. People are again trying to, looking into cash flow forecasting because, strangely enough, not a lot of corporate treasuries are doing this well. While cash is basically what is one of the key elements of a treasury management system or team, I would say, or processes. So indeed, for cash flow forecasting, there is also specialist applications. A lot of corporations are still doing it in Excel, and the reason for that is that cash flow forecasting will require data not only that is residing in your treasury management system, but also from other applications in the organizations, plus will require manual input from business teams within the organization. And that's why a cash flow forecasting tool is often a separate tool that is then also interfacing data from large amounts of data from ERPs that are not really meant to be in a treasury management system. For example, there's no value in capturing all your accounts receivables, accounts payables that basically are required for cash flow forecasting in a treasury management system. Therefore, they are separate, and they also are more focused on dashboarding and BI tool applications.
Awesome. I will imagine that again, TMS could ensure the basic function of cash flow forecasting, but as soon as you want some more detailed, more integrated, more precise tool, you need to go for a specialized.
And some treasury management systems do it quite well. My only point is the treasury management system the right tool to pull in all this data that kind of give you the insights that you want in a cash flow forecasting solution.
Okay.